I'm sure anyone who's seen the title of this video is probably asking themselves, what on God's green earth more could you say about Exar Kun? And why are you even remaking this video, because it doesn't seem like a video you need to remake? Well, what is there to say more about Exar Kun? More than I want, less than there'll ever truly deserve to be. I'm remaking this now, rather than later, and I'm remaking it without a script, unlike my Sadao one, because, two reasons, just very quickly. The script with Sadao I enjoyed, but my delivery was a little strained, and I'm starting to understand that me and scripts are not really good friends at this point, so I'm going to try one more time to go off the script and truly make a rambling video, insert my little funnies here and there, clips or whatever. See how it goes. I like how I'm one of the few YouTubers who actively tells his viewers what his thought process is on a video by video basis. I don't know, I guess that's somewhat unprofessional and dated, but oh well, that's how I am. Exar Kun. The reason I want to remake this video is because my other video is an hour long, and I might keep it up on the channel, but I might move it over to like an older Exar Kun, like for those videos that I don't feel deserve to be deleted, because a couple of them do. I'll just move them into like a old playlist of just ignore them if you want to, you can watch them if you want. Because for the majority of that video, I kind of retrace his life somewhat poorly, in my opinion. And as I've mentioned before, there are people on YouTube who have probably devoted 5-10 minutes more or whatever to Kun and done a more effective job of outlining what exactly his life story was. The reason why I made an Exar Kun video way back in the day, right after Naga Sadao, was not only because they're closely related to one another in terms of time periods. It's also because Exar Kun happens to be my favorite Sith Lord, and a lot of people are like, Exar Kun, I've never heard of Exar Kun. What's an Exar Kun? Well, to put it very simply, Exar Kun was a Jedi Knight, not even a knight really, he was more of a Padawan of the Jedi Master Vodo Siask Boss, who was a Kraveki, I think that's how you say the alien species. And Boss was like the weapons master, the battle master, weapons master, whatever you want to call him, of the Jedi Order, meaning if you were apprenticed under him and you couldn't fight, then there was something wrong with you, because you should have been top of your game in terms of dueling. Exar Kun was one of his apprentices. Vodo had several apprentices, Credo, Silvar, but Kun was his most gifted, which he even states in the comics Tales of the Jedi, where Kun's story mainly takes place. Beyond that, he, like many Sith, was arrogant, full of himself, a little power hungry, felt held back despite his strength and power, always feeling as if something was missing, which is something Boss mentions, is that there's some hidden away place inside of Kun. I think he says specifically his heart, but take that as you will. Just something inside Kun was missing, something he was chasing after, and even he himself did not know it. And whether or not you want to take that as the Force, power, whatever you want to do, it was something that drove him a little bit crazy, considering the lengths he went to understand the Force. To skip over and to make simpler and shorter this video, I will say that Kun defeated Boss in a lightsaber battle on Dantooine. It wasn't one that was inherently antagonistic, where Apprentice was trying to kill the Master. It was simply a duel where Kun kind of snapped, but he didn't really try to kill Boss. He just defeated him very, very heftily. And Kun decided to leave Dantooine and go off into the galaxy. And he went to Onderon came into contact with Naga Sadow. Or Naga Sadow, Jesus. No! That is incorrect, sir. No, he came into contact with Frida Nad. Frida Nad had been trained by Naga Sadow's spirit. Frida Nad is a Sith Lord of strange historical background, I'll just say that. I never got to Nod because Nod is one of those Sith Lords who will be somewhat complicated but somewhat easy at the same time people to make a video about. I don't know exactly if I can make a 35-minute long video about him, but I can make something about him in the future, but that's neither here nor there. Kun was not necessarily trained directly by Nod, but he was given instruction to go to Korriban. Kun went to Korriban. He ended up coming into contact with some Tukata and just general Sith spirits on Korriban, who I guess toppled an entire temple on top of him. Or I guess maybe the implication could have been Nod did it himself. Who knows? Kun was dying. Nod kind of made him give in to the dark side in order to heal himself. He did. And that was his first steps, I guess you want to call it that. Although Kun had killed some Nadists, people who were like cult followers of Frida Nad back on Duxon. Yeah. So I guess that was, he didn't really need to kill them either, so that was kind of like the first really un-Jedi thing to do. It's just like, oh, I'm going to kill you two pathetic losers. But, again, trying to make this shorter in terms of his life story.
Fail.
Went to Korriban, healed, took the steps into the dark side. Then Nod pointed him towards Yavin 4, which Nod knew of Yavin 4 because he was trained under Naga Sadow's spirit. And before SWTOR came out, Nod was the one who destroyed Sadow's spirit on Yavin 4. But now with SWTOR, it doesn't really make sense what he did, whatever. Exar Kun went to Yavin 4, found the Massassi. Massassi knocked him out. He was taken and he was going to be sacrificed to a Sith worm, W-Y-R-M, not worm, W-O-R-M. And Kun managed to pull away an amulet from the Massassi priest. I think the way you pronounce his name is Zithmanir? Zithmanir? Something like that. And the amulet amplified his power, and people want to contend that the amulet gave him his power, which I completely disagree with. The comic itself merely states that it took the rage, the anger, the darkness that was already inside of him, and the power. And no, it didn't take the power. It took that rage and it just amplified it. Brought it to the fore of his mind, and with it, he unleashed a Force Blast, which is also another cool power that Kun, I think, has exhibited that very few other Star Wars characters have even tried or even done in general. Which is, let's think of Dragon Ball Z here. He basically makes a beam of energy out of his hands, and it rips through anything and everything he's pointing his hands toward, and it kills the Sith worm, and it destroys a chunk of the temple that he's being sacrificed in. And because who the Massassi are, this now currently warped Sith offshoot species that worship the Dark Lords, they sense his power in the Force, they sense the dark side, and they just witnessed his power. And so they begin worshipping him, or praising him, however you want to take that, is essentially worship. And they immediately begin following him because he's proved himself to be their next Dark Lord, which they've been waiting for, if not since Frida Nad, since Naga Sadow. Nod wants Kun, who he's just made intensely powerful and aware of his power in the Force and attuned to the dark side, wants Kun to help him find some tomes and relics of Naga Sadow to help revive him, Nad, bring him back to life with his own body. I don't know what the fuck Nod was thinking he was going to do. Um, and then Kun eviscerates his Force spirit, which doesn't mean his spirit ceases to exist and Nod is just gone. It just means that Nod is sent back into the void of the Force. Earlier in Tales of the Jedi, I think it was King Omni or Queen Aminoa had summoned Nod's spirit from the void or the nether realm of the Force, however they worded it weirdly, which to me just represents that, yeah, when a Darksider dies, their spirit is tossed somewhere deep and nasty within the Force itself, because everything's connected, so it's still connected, it's just kind of set aside away from everything else. That's the nasty aspect of the Force. So you could pull that spirit back, but it's not like, bringing it back to life. And when the spirit gets destroyed, quote unquote, back in the more normal living plane, it's just sent back to where it came from. It's not, you somehow killed a ghost or killed a spirit. It's just sending it back beyond, like, the veil, if that's what you want to call it. Something like those, along those lines. Oh, already this is taking a while. Kun takes over the Massassi, as I said. He has them dig up some of Sadao's old ships. He goes to Empress Teta to destroy the other acolytes of Nad, who were originally Satao and Alima Keto, although Satao's been killed by Ulic Qel-droma, who is now also taken the spot of Frida Nad's chosen. I mean, Nad never really trained Ulic. He just kind of showed up and said, "Oh, you'll be a Sith Lord one of these days, kid." And Ulic's like, "Oh, no, I won't." "Yes, I am." Ulic is a little unimpressive to me as a Sith Lord, but maybe one day I'll get to him and why he's not really that interesting. He's not bad, he's just not that interesting. So, Kun goes there to try and kill both Ulic and Lima. Begins fighting Ulic, just kind of tosses Alima aside, saying, "Bitch, shut up." And up until that point, I had always hoped someone would do that, because Alima's really fucking annoying. And it kind of just goes on to further show just how powerful Kun is, where he's like, "Oh yeah, you're a powerful Sith sorceress. Bye! Get out of my way." The two are pretty much evenly matched in terms of lightsaber combat, and Ulic had an amulet, a Sith amulet. I forgot how he got it. I haven't read Tales of the Jedi, that part of Tales of the Jedi recently. And Kun's amulet from Zithmanir, however you say his name, they clashed together, and not really clashed, they kind of just found one another, kind of connected through the Force, and they allowed for this vision to appear, and it's more of a projection, again, of a Sith spirit. Marker Ragnos shows up, tells them to stop fighting, proclaims Kun to be the next Dark Lord of the Sith, proclaims that he will bring about the next Golden Age, and that he could have brought about the next Golden Age, he didn't. Proclaims Kun to be the next Dark Lord, and that because of Exar Kun, the Sith will never die. So essentially, Mark Ragnos is giving all accolades to Kun for being the one to continue even the sheer reality of the Sith being a thing. Of course, SWTOR wasn't a thing at that point, so the writers, Kevin J. Anderson and Veach couldn't have fucking realized that their whole idea in that regard was just lost. So, Marco Ragnos also proclaims Ulic to be his apprentice, but Ulic doesn't really act like much of an apprentice to Kun. What ends up happening is that the Great Sith War is initiated, although Wikipedia kind of turns the Great Sith War into the blanket term, the Nadist Uprising on Onderon, the Beast Wars, which I think happened before the Nadist Uprising, I should say. The whole thing with Empress Teta and the takeover by the Keto cousins. They're not twins, they're cousins. Right? Yes. Yes, they're cousins. Along with The whole thing on Deneba when the Jedi Conclave is assaulted by those droids sent by the Ketos. Kun, and this is the thing that again annoys me about Tales of the Jedi, is that we're given this thing called Great Sith War, but we don't get much show of it. We only get kind of told of it, and we get to assume things about it, especially since the war is years long, quote unquote. And Kun has mini Masasi, and Ulic and Alima have the entire Empress Teta system, the Krath, which are this dark side cult, droids, yada yada yada. And we have, especially like the Old Republic comics, which kind of not really show, but they insinuate lots of things happened in the war. And Jolie Bindo in KOTOR kind of insinuates the Jedi pogrom that was initiated by Kun and the Dark Jedi. They're quote unquote Dark Jedi because of they didn't really fall of their own volition necessarily, although maybe some did. It's kind of implied by Jolie Bindo that his wife for sure like fell to the dark side willingly. But like I said, it's implied by Jolie Bindo and all the Old Republic comics that the war had many facets, many battles and events that we never saw in Tales of the Jedi. And I can see that. I mean, Kun acts a certain arrogant kind of way in the comics that leads me to believe that maybe he had initiated some things behind the scenes we hadn't seen in some battles, or maybe Ulic did, because it looks like certainly Ulic was conducting the majority of battles in the Great Sith War, or at least in instructing them from afar, especially after he fought the Mandalorians at Kuar and defeated Mandalore the Indomitable and made all the Mandalorian clans subservient to him. Kun, again, trying to make this as speedy as possible. Ulic assaulted Coruscant, Alima betrayed him, Mandalore found Kun, begged Kun to come help release Ulic from Coruscant. He did. He finds Qel-droma. Kun freezes the entire Senate, just like, uses the Force to make them just freeze. They can't do anything, can't say anything. He grabs the back of the Chancellor's head and uses his power in the Force to make the Chancellor repeat every word Kun says, which is basically a denouncement of the Republic and how they're going to fall and die. He lets go of the Chancellor falls over dead because of whatever Kun had done. So, the guy is powerful, and he usually demonstrates his power through like this strange exercise of just raw Force power, and that's one of the things I really like about him. He fights Boss, his old master, in the what was it? It was the Senate building of the ancient times, and he even offered. And this is the thing that a lot of people never bring up, that I'm always a little shocked and annoyed by, is that Kun places his hand on Boss's shoulder and is like, "Oh, Master, I could really use your help in my new Sith Order, my Brotherhood of the Sith, whoever came up with that. I could use you in my new order and for the next coming of the Golden Age. Just join me." And Boss is like, I'm going to say no, so it's not really worth it. And Kun was like, well, I had to try, and that's when he pulls out his double-bladed lightsaber. And up until, I think it was, what was it, Dawn of the Jedi? The book series that happened, 25,000 years before the films, where there's a double-bladed lightsaber, which really annoys me. It was insinuated before all that Kun had been the one to invent the double-bladed lightsaber, and his was more efficient than the current double blades, because his was a hilt the size of a single-bladed lightsaber, but acted as a double-bladed lightsaber. So people still give him credit for that not only did he reinvent or refound the double-bladed lightsaber, but his double-bladed lightsaber was an anomaly, this piece of, engineering genius on the part of him as a Jedi, or Sith Lord at this point. I also enjoy the fact that he never changed his lightsaber color, he just really felt it wasn't necessary. I usually like when a Sith Lord turns it red because there's a representation there of casting off the old you, but I don't know. I just kind of like the whole aesthetic of Exar Kun with a blue lightsaber, and that's kind of petty of me, but hey. This is Star Wars we're talking about. They're not known for grade A material, especially as of late.
Just when I believe my photoreceptors have recorded the last potential aspect of your cruelty to my memory core, you commit a new atrocity that leaves me analyzing its impact for days.
God, what else? Kun fights Boss, and because of his double-bladed lightsaber, he manages to overcome him. He kills Boss, and what's always annoyed me is that Kun, they don't show in the comic Kun, like, laughing in glee or staring, like, smirkingly, smilingly over Boss's body, or his remains, because he becomes one with the Force. He actually kind of looks somber. He's just kind of glaring. Not really. He's kind of glaring. He's giving this kind of glare / hard kind of look down on Boss's robes, and he doesn't look happy. He doesn't look sad. He just kind of looks a little numb, and you never got the impression that he never liked Boss. And this is something that I like about Kun as opposed to, say, Anakin when he went full dark side, how he suddenly unleashed all of this rage against Obi-Wan that I have my reasons for believing is justified, but I won't go into them here. And then Silvar, a Cathar Jedi who he really did not like, tried to attack him. He just kind of pushes her away. And again, he doesn't like lord it over everyone that he just killed Voto Sias Boss. He just kind of like says, go away, I don't want to deal with you right now. And that to me has always represented a cool fact about Kun, is that he never really hated his own Jedi Master. It's just that he never was satisfied with just being a Jedi. He wanted to be the Jedi. And when he finally took on that power, he didn't really want to kill Boss. But because he wanted to see this Golden Age thing through, to be the Sith now, he had to kill Boss. And he didn't lord it over everyone. He didn't gloat or take glee in it. He just did it. And I don't know, I think that's a interesting thing for a Sith Lord, to not outright be disgusted and disdainful of their old Jedi Master, but instead kill them not because it's necessity or because they simply want to, but because they are in their way. And Boss showed that he wanted to take responsibility for Kun's failure as a Jedi. And I think there was a point where Boss tells Kun to stop the madness, basically like, stop it, turn away, don't do this, and Kun's like, no, you don't understand, it's dark side Force, it's powerful. So I've always enjoyed the dimension between Boss and Kun, at least as it's shown in Tales of the Jedi. Anyway, him and Ulic leave Coruscant, some more time passes, they return to Yavin 4, I believe, and Kun and Ulic trick Alima, who is pretending to be all, oh, I'm sorry, Ulic, that the frickin' Republic and Jedi took you captive on Coruscant, despite the fact that we were winning the battle and I pulled back all of your forces, and Mandalore can back that up. Ulic's like, oh no, Alima, it's all okay, here, just listen to Exar Kun, he's got this great plan. Exar Kun puts Alima onto Naga Sadao's old capital ship, or at least the ship that he was on when the Great Hyperspace War was coming apart. And he sends her to the Kron Cluster, and she uses the crystals. I don't exactly know what you'd call them. There's a crystal-like machine inside of the ship that amplifies the Force and the person using it. She uses it to amplify her own powers, and she rips the very core of a star out. And it destroys, eviscerates, melts, burns away a sizable Republic force and many Jedi, essentially killing them just instantly. However, ripping the core of a star out wasn't a good thing, and it causes kind of a cascade failure in the entire cluster, because one star goes nova, it sets all the other stars into nova. So the Kron cluster explodes into what I think, I could be wrong about this, but I believe it's been stated somewhere that the Kron cluster explosion inside the Star Wars universe is the largest explosion in all of Star Wars history, because it's several stars all just popping at the same time. And the rays of, whatever you want to call them, gamma rays, radiation itself is just blasted out into the vacuum of space. And it's going to hit the Jedi world of Ossus, which is why Ossus becomes pretty much uninhabitable for thousands of years. Kun goes to Ossus with Qel-droma. They go there just to steal Jedi texts, tomes, information, holocrons. Kun fights this one Jedi Master who, I wish I looked up his name just now, but basically his species is this weird plant-like alien biological species that can turn into trees. It's a little weird, but there's been several Jedi who have been of this species. But basically he fights Kun, he can't really defeat him, he kind of turns into his tree form to sustain himself, and I think he hides like several Jedi artifacts within himself, if I can put it that way. So Kun can't get them. I think they're like lightsabers or something, or one of them is anyways. Kun leaves. Ossus is smashed by the radiation from the Kron cluster explosion. Basically kills all life on the planet, makes it uninhabitable, and this Jedi Master just kind of hibernates there for thousands of years until after the Empire falls at Endor. Qel-droma fought his brother Kay on Ossus, killed him. Nomi's Sunrider cut him off from the Force because of it, and Ulic, regretting what he just did to his brother, decides he's going to lead the Republic and the Jedi to Yavin 4 to defeat Kun, who somehow already made it back. Again, the timeline of these comics I wish was a little more fleshed out, because it feels like one thing jumps right into the other when it feels like days or weeks have passed. Mandalore is assaulting Onderon with his Mandalorians. It won't end well. He and many Mandalorians crash on Duxon, which is why it becomes so important to their people and culture later on. Mandalore the Ultimate finds Mandalore the Indomitable's mask, and he becomes Mandalore the Ultimate. And we all know where that leads. Hashtag Mandalorian Wars. Hashtag Fanboys of Mandalorians. Hashtag Karen Travis. Please fucking leave me alone. Christ. So, Kun is trapped on Yavin 4. He sees the massive Republic fleet that's come for him and all the Jedi. And the Jedi's plan is to assault Kun with the giant wall of light. The wall of light is what Nomi used to cut Ulic off from the Force. It's just a technique to kind of block someone's ability to sense, or it could be to bind something in place. It's kind of like stasis to the extreme, and you don't have to have the person be immobile. At the same time, Kun is going to live on by separating his spirit from his body, using old Sith texts he found on Yavin 4. And to do this, he sacrifices all of the Massassi species except for a couple thousand or so, or whatever many he put into this thing called a Golden Globe. Yes, haha. And their spirits are like kind of trapped there until he decided he wanted to release them at some point. We're getting into Jedi Academy book stuff, which has always been a little weird. In spite of the fact that I love most of them. So, this intense dark power that Kun is producing, smashing against the intense light power that the Jedi are creating, create this sort of nexus on Yavin 4 that causes this giant inferno to engulf the entire moon. And that's what they say, it was the entire moon, although everything on the moon kind of grows back rather quickly nonetheless. And so Massassi should be dead, SWTOR, They are dead. I don't know what the fuck these abominations are. They're not Masasi. Anyway, I'll get to you eventually. Kun succeeds, but he's kind of stuck in limbo now, and he's kind of stuck on Yavin 4. And we don't really hear about Kun up until SWTOR, if you want to go there, because if you play as the Sith Warrior, you have this really weird scene where you're in the jail cells. And the jailer says that, who is it? Trammell, your trainer, thinks that your character is the next coming of Exar Kun, which doesn't really make any sense because, first off, why would the Sith Empire revere Exar Kun because Exar Kun would essentially to them be a pretender, and he would have stood kind of against the Sith Emperor because he himself believed himself to be the Dark Lord of the Sith, not Valkorian, Vichovich. So, I'm not sure why SWTOR would make a reference to Kun beyond the fact that, hey, we also read Tales of the Jedi, see, we're name-dropping. Because it doesn't make any sense for the Sith Empire to revere Kun in the least. Despite the fact how I feel, within the universe it doesn't make any sense. We don't hear about Exar Kun after that, in terms of his person. Like, people look for his lightsaber and talk about him in the old Republic times, because it was because of his fall and the great damage him and Ulic did that the Jedi began reforming and not getting involved in the Mandalorian Wars, why the Jedi Civil War happened, blah 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 blah. We don't hear about Kun in person until, God, what is it? 14 or 10 ABY? When Luke has set up his Praxium on Yavin 4, and he's like beginning his very first class. And Kun's spirit is finally beginning to make his influence and self known. Why he couldn't do it before, it really comes down to what your fan theory is, really. He gets to Gantoris. I don't have time to talk about Gantoris. Jedi apprentice doesn't end well. I'll just say that. He gets to Gantoris. Gantoris is afraid of Kun. Kun wants Gantoris to give in to the dark side to help him. Basically what Nod did. Basically like, here, help me, get me a body. I'll give you what you want, whatever that may be. Gantoris resists. Kun, and this is when I knew I really liked Kun. Not because what he does is cool, or good, but because what he does is an awesome show of power that I always accepted, even though there is some OP-ness. OP-ness, God, that sounds really, really bad. There's some OP aspect to his power here, which The Last Jedi made plain and fucking clearly simple as possible, is that he essentially burns Gantoris from the inside out. He uses the Force to start this inferno inside of Gantoris that burns him to a smoldering pile of ash. Which is fucking horrible, but if you want to talk about someone using the Force in new and mysterious ways, that's one way for you right there. That's when he turns his sights on Qel-droma, who had a troubled history. Supposedly his brother's dead, he can't find his brother, his family's gone, the Empire did terrible things to him and his family. So he's got already some troubled aspects to his personality that the Force exacerbates. Convinces Qel-droma to pull the Sun Crusher out of Yavin Prime and to go to, what is it, Karita? No, it's not Karita, is it? I forget. It's an Imperial world. It's either Karita or Koralag, but I can't for the life of me believe it's either because they're both so important. It begins with a C. I'm doing this off the cuff, not without a script, because I feel like this is my more natural way of doing these videos, because it's called Sith Lord Rambling. I might as well ramble. But Qel-droma takes the Sun Crusher, which is an overpowered to hell vehicle. Yes, it looks kind of wacky. It's got really stupid... It has a stupid amount of power to it. I still think it's interesting, but I don't like it in terms as a super weapon. But still, it has the ability to destroy an entire star system. Qel-droma fires one of its torpedoes that initiates a meltdown on the star. And it's going to begin to destroy the entire star system. That's when Qel-droma realizes that his brother is alive and on the planet that he just destroyed, essentially killing him. Exar Kun loses Qel-droma kind of after that. Qel-droma's talked down by, I think it's Han Solo? The Sun Crusher is just jettisoned into a black hole after that because the thing was nearly indestructible, and I think a black hole is probably the only legitimate thing that would have destroyed it. Exar Kun, in the meantime, has been back on Yavin 4, putting Luke into this kind of Force-induced coma to attack him and try and defeat him. His other apprentices and younglings around the temple, which I think at this point also included Jason and Jaina, initiate trying to purge Kun from the world, the moon. And I think they also begin trying to use the Wall of Light technique on him. And Kun, beforehand, thrashed around some of the Jedi who were older. I think he even nearly killed that one Jedi Master whose name I can't for the life of me remember. He wasn't really a Master, just someone who was, worthy enough of being called a Master at that point. He was an older person. Cam Solusar, I think, is there, and he, tries to help out, but I think is, tossed aside by Kun's spirit. Leia has to intervene to help Luke at one point. Mara Jade is there briefly, I think. And Kun is essentially fucking unstoppable. He's just oh, get out of my way, you go away, blah, 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 blow up my temple, I don't give a shit, I'll break your bones, which he does. I think he tortures, who does he torture? He has someone pinned and he starts thrashing them and breaking their bones. Oh, God, I can't remember their names. This is the problem with rambling on the spot. You can't remember certain people's names, so you should. But Kun nearly gets at Luke, and I think he was either trying to kill Luke or take his body. But Luke is saved. Kun is kind of cornered, and his spirit is still strong enough, but they make enough of a wall of light around him. Enough strength is pulled around his spirit, and Vodo Siask Bas appears and basically pulls Exar Kun screaming down into the void of the Force, finally making up for his failure, pretty much. And that's kind of the end of Kun. So, hey, I managed to summarize his whole story in about half the time, or maybe the same amount of time, I don't know, but let me kind of summarize my generalized feelings on the character, and why he's my favorite Sith Lord. He's my favorite Sith Lord because he feels like a representation of, the pre-Darth Vader, because I feel like there are several precursors to Darth Vader. Exar Kun and Revan being, two of the biggest, shows of that. Someone who was destined for greatness, kind of viewed by the Jedi Order as being destined for greatness, powerful, strong, skilled with lightsaber, and skilled in the Force, and they fell anyways because they were either arrogant, or there was a piece of them, or a part of them that the Jedi Order had not addressed, and because of that, the Jedi Order failed them, and these Jedi caused intense damage to the entire Republic and to the entire Order. Kun brought about the Jedi Pogrom, which killed lots of Masters. Many of them we don't know their names, sure. But the insinuation that Masters are just being killed by their apprentices and friends, that would fuck up an entire organization's perception. And it does. Revan taking so many Jedi away, turning them to the dark side eventually, and then initiating Jedi Civil War, astoundingly psychologically paralyzes the entire Order. So these are people who do things that change the order, but they also harden the order. As I mentioned in the Naga Sadao video, ironically, it's the Sith who, through their ideas of struggle and conflict makes someone stronger, they have constantly made the Republic and the Jedi stronger through their initiated conflict with them. Kun was a master of a lightsaber form which I never gave much thought to until I realized that Kun had taken it to its furthest extreme. That form's Niman, the sixth Jedi form, the sixth lightsaber form. I'm drunk, can you tell? No, I'm not, I'm kidding. Niman is the... Go to Jensari's YouTube channel if you want to hear about Niman. Go to any Star Wars theorists and the Star Wars YouTuber channel to find out what Niman is. Basically, it's a form of lightsaber combat, which is a very generalized, very vanilla, like, we're going to teach you some of the basics of all the forms that come before and the one that comes after, that one being Juyo. And you're going to chain these attacks with the Force. Think Force Unleashed when you're swiping your lightsaber all over the place. You whirl it around, and as you do, like, you unleash like a torrent of lightning through the lightsaber. That's a little extreme, but that's kind of what Niman calls for, is using the lightsaber to be a basic piece of defense for you to kind of articulate what you want to do with the Force towards your opponents. Kun took it to the extreme, in which he became such a proficient and powerful user. He retroactively and in a backwards way kind of came to understand and almost master all aspects of all the other lightsaber forms by just using the one Niman. And when you master Niman to this degree, you can go from any form into another and become this unjudgeable, unpredictable mess of a swordsman. He can flow easily from Makashi into Shicho, or Shicho into Gemso, Gemso into Juyo, Juyo back into Sarisu. Just because through Niman he has such a fundamental understanding of the other forms, he isn't bound by articulating himself or making himself adhere to a single form. He can flow from one into the other so quickly and easily that you can't really predict what he's going to do, which I always found to be a freaking amazing aspect about him. And with his double blade lightsaber, he can flow from twin blades to a single blade back into a single twin, single, doesn't matter. He uses that to his furthest extreme because that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he could do, and he was just that powerful. He showed such a raw strength in the Force that I don't really see in many other characters besides, say, Anakin or Revan or who else, you know. Raw potential? I guess you could throw Glenn Mark in there. Running joke, Glenn Mark, I mean Galen Merrick. Don't worry about it. Glenn here is the epitome of someone who uses the Force to its extreme, and he has raw potential, I would say. Anakin had raw potential. Revan had raw potential. Kun also had raw potential. Ula Qel-droma had raw potential. Nomi Sunrider had raw potential. But he took that and let it ferociously kind of decloth himself, in that when he was finally free of all of his inhibitions, he just let himself go wild. He could freeze entire rooms of people. He could kill someone by just holding the back of their head, making them repeat his own words, kind of twisting their minds and their bodies, and then drop you, you're dead. He could burn you alive from the inside out. He could unleash a powerful blast of pure energy that would rip apart buildings and kill giant space worms, okay? He was unabashedly arrogant, but he didn't come off as the ha ha ha, I am so evil, look at me. He always had a purpose, which I always enjoyed. when he went to Oasis, he went there to get all those texts. He fought, was it Odnar? Odnar, is that the name of the Jedi Master who turns to a tree? I don't know, I'll look it up later. He goes there, he tries to steal the relics. He sent Alima off to die because she was a traitor. She was only out for herself, and she proved herself to be a liability. He saved Ulic when Ulic flat out told Kun, "You're an idiot, I'm going to assault Coruscant. You're hardly a Sith because you only have a couple Jedi following you. Go die in a fire." And Exar Kun's like, "Don't expect me to come and save you when you fuck up." And what does Exar Kun do? What does he do? He goes and he saves him. Can you tell me of a Sith Lord, a Dark Lord, who would find an apprentice who fails, gets captured by the Jedi, and is brought before the Senate to be tried, and he would come and actually save that person? Because there was a practicality to having Ulic, not only because Marker Ragnos said this is your apprentice, but there's a practicality to having him on his side. This video is going to be as long as my old one. Fuck me. God dang it. Alright, well, he saves Ulic when he shouldn't have to. I don't know, there's just a sense that Kun always did something with a purpose in mind. It wasn't just because, haha, I want to be evil. No, there was a reason why he did things. And when things didn't go his way, he always tried to twist and turn things just right. When the Jedi on Yavin 4, who he brought with him back from, I believe it was Dantooine, I could be wrong. He brought them back with him to Yavin 4, and they were starting to get conflicted about being there, because they thought that he was certainly fallen, and that he wasn't doing the Jedi thing. He tries to convince them over and over again. He doesn't say, "Oh no, I have learned the true path of the dark side. It's so powerful, guys. Come join me." He lies to them essentially in saying, "I'm a Jedi. Look at these powers I have come to understand that the Jedi Council and the Masters don't want you to see." But when that doesn't work, he's like, "Oh, here, I will show you the way. I will show you what needs to be done." He smashes that Sith holocron he stole from Odin and this is where things get kind of tricky. Seemingly the Jedi fall because a lot of Sith, if not spirits, Sith influence infected these Jedi, and they went off on a rampage to kill their own masters. I feel like that's not really what should be said about that whole event, but either way, he eventually gets his way, and he tells them, "Go kill your masters." Same thing with Naga Sadao. Exar Kun completely psychologically damaged the Republic and the Jedi Order to such an extent that the Mandalorian Wars came, and the Jedi sat and did nothing because they were so worried that they were being pulled into something they weren't prepared for. They were. The Sith Emperor used it to his own advantage, I guess, if you want to say that about Fitch Bitch. Itchy Vitchy. And Kun battered the Republic, along with the Krath, Alima Keto, Ulic Qel-droma. And Marker Ragnos said that he would be the reason why the Sith would never die, and I disagree with that only now because of Itchy Vitchy Valkorian, because now it feels like that's kind of a lie. But if you take SWTOR out of the equation, then yeah, Exar Kun was the only reason why there were Sith cults and Sith offshoots and these people who follow the dark side after his coming into power. Quote-unquote remnants of his empire went and served Revan when he became the quote-unquote emperor of his own little Sith empire. So, and then when we get to the whole Luke thing, that's when he really is like, "I'm going to burn you alive, I'm going to thrash you around, I'm going to topple temples on top of your head, I'm going to put Jedi into trances and have them try and kill their fellow Jedi." It's insane the amount of things he can do, and he does, that kind of cemented many people, their standing, their understanding, their place within the Force, and how he affected them. And I feel like he doesn't get a lot of credit, and that's fine. I understand that there are some Sith who are more flashy, who did a lot more in terms of just intense, crazy things that were more written for, more well understood. I feel like Exar Kun, if you gave a couple of books to him and his war, would have been so amazing. But we will never get that. Same thing with Nomi Sunrider, same with Qel-droma. We really did not get to explore their characters as much as comic books can. Or, no, we didn't get to explore them because comic books can't explore characters to the extent to which one would hope. You know, it's one of the things that I've always been sad about, because Revan, we all know the crazy things he did and all the stuff he did, and he has plenty of history behind him. Darth Bane, he has 3 whole books to himself, and everyone knows what Bane has done. Everyone has seen what Bane has done, and what Bane, what mark he left on the galaxy. You know, Sidious, Plagueis even now. Darth Vader, or even Jason Solo, Darth Kaitis, you know. They had whole books, entire, like, thesauruses devoted to them. Kun, again, you have to understand what they were trying to get across with him in the short amount of time they could. It's kind of unfair because Kun did show up in, I think, 1 or 2 books, and they were Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy. Decent set of books, written a little weirdly. Kevin J. Anderson has a weird kind of writing style that I don't mind. I actually kind of enjoy. Some people don't. I mean, after all, he wrote Callista Ming into Star Wars. If you don't know who that is, join the club. He wrote Darksaber. He came up with, God, what's her name? Natasi Dala. You can thank him for that crazy fucking Tarkin fangirl. I just wish that we had had more time to explore him and maybe his background with Voto, because I do think that there's more there than we're being led on, especially with how the comic book illustrators went out of their way to make him seem not like a gloating, happy kind of, oh, I am the Dark Lord and I have killed my master, I am free of the bindings of the Jedi. No, he just seemed kind of numb to it. I feel like there's a character layered underneath his bravado and arrogance that we weren't ever allowed to see. But beyond that, I'm not going to tell you to like the character just because of what we didn't see. He is a master of freaking Niman. He battered anyone who got into a lightsaber combat with him, a lightsaber duel with him. He had intense power with the Force. He was... If we're going to go with what Jolie Bindo said, and believe that many Jedi fell to his charms, beyond simply being corrupted by a Sith holocron, with his wife, Naama, you have to believe that he had some charisma to him, and understand that every action he took had a reason behind it, and he wasn't just a child wielding a lightsaber. He was a disturbed, maybe, man with something he was missing, as Voto said. And whatever that thing that was missing was, I don't even know if he ever really found it. And that's kind of a strange thing to think about with a Dark Lord of the Sith. Because did he find whatever he was looking for when he fell? Was it power? Was it the Force? Was it the dark side? I can't tell you. I mean, and then on a more surface level, I really enjoyed his armor design. It's very 90s, I will say that. But beyond that, I still liked it. Not the SWTOR variant. The SWTOR variant is kind of The Tales of the Jedi look, that's really cool. This picture I'm showing here is the one I actually like more. I mean, plenty of people don't like it for various reasons, but I think that his other pictures... Well, this one here is also good. But I don't know. I like him. I think that there was more that could have been done with him, and yeah, the tattoo scar thing on the top of his forehead is also really cool. I'm basic when it comes to this type of stuff. Yeah, I wish more had been done. But it never will be now, thanks to fuck you, Disney. So yeah, somewhat shorter than my last one on Exar Kun, but this one is my official Exar Kun video. I know it's not going to get that many views because plenty of people have already heard me talk about him. They want to hear me talk about something else. Don't worry, I will get there eventually and get some new stuff out for you guys. Either way, I thank you all for listening to me again for another hour. Hopefully, you guys are listening to me while you're doing something else more interesting. That way I can kind of be background noise for you to either agree or disagree with. But hey, maybe one day I will do a commentary on episode 7, 8, and Rogue One. Who would want to listen to me bitch about a movie for... In episode 8's case, who'd want to listen to me bitch about a movie for, what is it, 2.5 hours long? You know what? The only way that's going to happen is if you pay me. And you have to pay me a decent amount of money. But I digress. Oh, man. Alright. Alright, thanks, guys. I'll see you all later.